Hey everyone. Spring is upon us, and this spring in particular marks a milestone in our history, the end of our 2-year Called Out Generosity Initiative. Now, I know that it's hard to believe that we're drawing near to the end of this 2-year campaign, but it's true. And it has been our privilege to see some amazing miracles happen in the lives of those who chose to surrender themselves and to be stretched by like never before, particularly in their personal generosity. As of today, I'm happy to report we've seen almost 79% of our pledges, or $2.1 million, come in for Called Out. And we couldn't be more thrilled with this display of faithfulness, and we're grateful for each and every one of you. Now, with just a few months left before the end of Called Out, let me ask, how are you doing on your pledge? According to our records, some of you have finished already and even given above and beyond your pledge. Some of you are moving right along, and then some of you have quite a ways to go. We want to encourage you to finish strong. Whether or not you reach your entire pledge isn't what's important. What's most important is doing your best to honor the call to generosity that God laid on your heart. When it comes to any form of kingdom generosity, it's never ever about money. It's always about obedience. And we want to encourage you to chase obedience in how you end this Called Out season. Now, recently, as my wife Stephanie and I were planning our budget for the coming year, we were starting to think about life after Called Out. You see, we have 2 teenagers and a 4-year-old, and the reality of cars and insurance and so many other expenses were looming out there before us. And so we did what I think a lot of us do. We started to reallocate that money in our minds that we've been giving to Called Out to pay for those expenses. Seems cool, right? That's no problem. And then seemingly out of nowhere, I got like this check in my spirit. Over the years, I've learned to lean in and listen when I get that feeling. So I asked the Lord, God, what are you trying to tell me? And in those moments, the Holy Spirit whispered a very hard truth to me. Phil, you have been incredibly generous with Called Out. Thank you for your faithfulness. You put a lot of money on the altar for the sake of the kingdom and for the sake of kingdom expansion and setting captives free. But Phil, let me ask you a question. Do you think I had you sacrifice and stretch for 2 years so that at the end of it, you could go back to your old level of selfishness? I gotta tell you, I was cut to the heart. You see, for 2 years, I had given generously to Called Out. But at the end of it all, I hadn't even thought to pause and ask, God, what now? What would you have me do with these funds now? I just assumed that I got to take them all back. Then the Holy Spirit spoke again. What if you left some of it on the altar? As you know, God has called Ransom in this next season of Setting Captives Free to launch a program called Awaken that is designed specifically to train young leaders and young church planters. Now, I am passionate about empowering this next generation to go out into the world and to teach people who God is and what it means to worship free of inhibition, to live free of sin, and to serve free of self. In that moment, the Spirit of God whispered to me, Phil, what about Awaken? What if you left some of your pledge on the altar for the sake of church planting? Not as a pledge, but just as ongoing generosity. This is what my wife and I have committed to. We're not making a pledge. We're simply committing to a new level of generosity above and beyond our tithe. We will continue to tithe, and we will also give generously to support Awaken and to help plant churches to reach the lost. Why? Because we're called to. Now, as Called Out wraps up, I don't know what your plan is for the money you've been giving, but I want to challenge you. What if you left some on the altar? We're looking for people who would be willing to not take it all back, who would be willing to choose a new normal when it comes to generosity and to help fund church plants and church planters. And if you're passionate about that idea, if it makes you excited, please contact us and let us know. But even if you aren't, I want to challenge you, be listening. Because whatever God's plan is for you, it isn't for you to go back to the way things were. Thanks again for all you do for Ransom Church, and God bless.